Before we start, a warning. The stories you're about to hear are based on real encounters, real people, real terror. If you're someone who hikes alone, who camps in remote places, who takes shortcuts through unfamiliar roads, pay attention. This could save your life. Here are 5 true, deep woods horror stories. The trees are calling me. I've always been drawn to the woods. There's something about being alone among the trees that settles my mind. No phones, no people, no noise except the wind and the birds and the sound of my own footsteps. I've been hiking and camping solo since I was 18. 20 years of it, off and on. I've slept in forests across 3 different states, weathered storms, gotten lost more times than I can count. I always made it back. But after what happened last fall, I don't know if I'll ever go alone again. It started as a simple 3-day trip, nothing ambitious, just me, my tent, and a trail I'd done twice before, the Pine Creek Trail in Pennsylvania, about 40 miles of rugged forest running through the Tioga State Forest. Beautiful country. Remote enough that you can go hours without seeing another person, but not so remote that you're truly alone. At least, that's what I thought. I drove out on a Thursday afternoon in October. The leaves were past peak, mostly brown and orange, carpeting the forest floor. The air had that crisp, clean smell of autumn, the kind that makes you want to breathe deep and hold it. I parked at the northern trailhead around 3 p.m., shouldered my pack, and started walking. The plan was simple. Hike about 8 miles the first day, set up camp near the creek, then spend the next 2 days exploring side trails before heading back. I'd done variations of this trip 6 times. It was routine, comfortable. The first few hours were perfect. The trail wound through dense forest, climbing gently along the ridge before dropping down toward the water. I saw a few other hikers heading the opposite direction. We exchanged nods, and then they were gone. By 5 p.m., the sun was getting low, and I hadn't seen anyone in over an hour. I found my campsite just before dark, a small clearing about 50 yards off the main trail, tucked against the bank of the creek. Flat ground, a fire ring made of old stones, plenty of fallen wood for a fire. It was exactly the kind of spot I always look for. I dropped my pack, set up my tent, and started gathering wood. The sun set around 6:30. I had a small fire going by 7, sat back with my camp stove and a pouch of dehydrated pasta, and watched the flames dance. The forest at night is never truly silent. There are always sounds. Owls calling, deer moving through the underbrush, the constant murmur of the creek. I'd heard it all 1,000 times. It was comforting, familiar. That night, something was different. I noticed it around 9 p.m., a silence that didn't belong. The crickets had stopped, the owls had gone quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The only sound was the creek, and even that felt muffled somehow. I told myself it was nothing. Animals go quiet sometimes. Maybe a predator passed through. Happens all the time. I added another log to the fire and tried to ignore the feeling crawling up my spine. That's when I heard the first knock. It came from somewhere in the darkness beyond my firelight. A single sharp sound. Wood hitting wood. Like someone striking a tree with a branch. I froze, listened. Nothing. Just the creak and my own heartbeat. I told myself it was a deer. They bump into trees sometimes, or a branch falling. The forest is full of random sounds at night. I went back to staring at the fire. 10 minutes later, another knock. Closer this time. Definitely closer. And this time, it was answered by a second knock from a different direction. I stood up, grabbed my flashlight, shined it into the trees. Nothing. Just darkness and trunks, and the faint gleam of my light reflecting off leaves. I called out, "Hello?" No answer, just the silence pressing in. I told myself I was being paranoid, probably another camper messing around. Or maybe it was just the forest playing tricks. I'd been alone too long. Happens to solo hikers sometimes. The mind starts to invent things. I sat back down, kept the flashlight in my lap. The knocks continued for the next hour. Always two. Always answering each other. Always getting closer. By 11 p.m., they were close enough that I could tell they were coming from just beyond the edge of my firelight, maybe 50 feet out, two different directions, one slightly northeast of my camp, one slightly northwest. Like they were flanking me. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat by the fire with my knife in one hand and the flashlight in the other, watching the darkness, waiting for something to step into the light. Nothing did, but the knocks didn't stop either. They just kept going, back and forth, like a conversation I couldn't understand. Around 3 a.m., they stopped. All at once. Just silence. I stayed awake until dawn, too wired to even consider sleep. When the sun finally rose, I convinced myself it had all been in my head. Exhaustion, isolation, an overactive imagination. I'd been alone in the woods plenty of times. This was no different. I made coffee, ate a granola bar, and decided to explore one of the side trails I'd marked on my map. Get my mind off things. Prove to myself I wasn't scared. That was my first mistake. The side trail led away from the creek, climbing steadily up a ridge through dense pine forest. I'd been on it maybe 20 minutes when I found the first tree. It was a massive oak, easily 100 feet tall, and carved into its trunk, about chest height, was a symbol. Not words, not initials, just a symbol. A circle with a line through it, like an empty eye. The cuts were fresh. The wood was still pale, not yet darkened by weather. I stared at it for a long time, ran my fingers over the grooves. Fresh. Definitely fresh. Maybe a day old, if that. I looked around. The forest was still, quiet. Too quiet. I kept walking. A quarter-mile further, I found another tree. Same symbol. Same fresh cuts. And this one had something else. At the base of the trunk, there was a small pile of stones. Not a cairn, just a pile, like someone had stacked them deliberately and then kicked them over. I felt that cold feeling again, the one from the night before, the one that told me I wasn't alone. I should have turned back. Should have gone to my camp, packed my gear, and hiked out right then. Every instinct was screaming at me to leave, but I didn't. I kept going. Because I'm an idiot. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't scared. Because I thought if I just saw what was out there, I could explain it away and stop being afraid. I didn't stop being afraid. The trail ended at a clearing about an hour later, and in that clearing, there was a cabin. Not a ranger station, not a shelter, just a cabin. Old, weathered, with a sagging roof and dark windows. It looked abandoned. Hadn't been maintained in years, maybe decades, but the door was open, just a crack, like someone had gone inside and hadn't bothered to close it all the way. I stood at the edge of the clearing for a long time, just looking at it. Everything in me was screaming to walk away, to go back to my camp, pack up, and never think about this place again. But I didn't. I walked toward it. The closer I got, the more wrong it felt. The cabin wasn't just abandoned. It was wrong. The windows weren't just dark. They were painted black from the inside. The door wasn't just open. It was open just enough to invite you in, but not enough to show you what was waiting. I stopped about 20 feet from the porch, stared at that dark doorway, listened. Nothing. Just silence. And then, from inside the cabin, I heard a single knock. I ran. I don't care how that sounds. I turned, and I ran back down that trail as fast as my legs would carry me. Branches whipped my face, roots tried to trip me, my pack slammed against my back with every stride. I didn't stop until I was back at my campsite, gasping for air, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I stood there bent over with my hands on my knees, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to convince myself I hadn't just heard what I'd heard, a knock. From inside an abandoned cabin. A cabin that had been sitting empty for God knows how long, with its windows painted black and its door cracked open like an invitation. I didn't pack up. I didn't even grab my gear. I just stood there, frozen, trying to figure out what to do. That's when I noticed the footprints around my tent. Dozens of them. Fresh impressions in the soft earth, circling the campsite like someone had been walking in loops while I was gone. They weren't boot prints. Too irregular. Too deep at the toes. Like someone had been walking on their toes, deliberately, to be quiet. I looked closer. The prints led to the edge of my camp, to the tree line. and then they just stopped, like whoever made them had vanished into thin air. I finally moved, grabbed my tent, ripped the stakes out of the ground, shoved everything into my pack without folding or rolling or caring about any of it. I just needed to get out. I was on the main trail within 10 minutes, heading south toward the trailhead. 8 miles. I could do 8 miles in a few hours if I pushed. I'd be at my car by early afternoon. Away from this place. Away from the knocking and the symbols and the footprints and the cabin. I walked fast, too fast, kept tripping on roots, catching my pack on branches, but I didn't slow down. About 2 miles in, I heard something behind me, footsteps, not on the trail, in the woods, parallel to me, moving at the same speed I was moving. I stopped, listened. The footsteps stopped too. I started walking again, faster this time. So did they. I broke into a jog. So did they. I could hear them crashing through the underbrush now, not even trying to be quiet anymore. Whatever it was matching me step for step. I ran, full sprint, pack bouncing, lungs burning, the trail blurred beneath my feet. I didn't look back, didn't dare. I ran until I couldn't run anymore. Collapsed against a tree, gasping, ready to fight if I had to. Silence. Just my own ragged breathing. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I started walking again. Slower this time, kept my head on a swivel, watching the tree line, watching for movement. Nothing. Just the forest. Just the trail. I made it to the trailhead around 2 p.m. My car was there, right where I'd left it, alone in the gravel lot. No other vehicles, no people. Just me and the woods I was desperate to leave behind. I threw my pack in the trunk, got in the driver's seat, and sat there for a long time with the doors locked and the engine running. Just breathing, just trying to process what the hell had happened. I drove home in a daze, didn't stop, didn't eat, just drove. It wasn't until I was back in my apartment, standing in my own kitchen with the lights on and the doors locked, that I finally let myself think about it. And that's when I realized I'd left something behind, my knife. The one I'd kept in my hand all night. The one I'd grabbed when I heard the first knock. It wasn't in my pack, wasn't in my pockets. I dropped it somewhere. On the trail, at the campsite, maybe at the cabin. I didn't sleep that night either. I tried to forget about it, tried to move on. Told myself it was just some weird encounter with another hiker, someone who didn't want to be seen. Someone who got their kicks from scaring people in the woods. It happens. There are weird people everywhere. But the knife bothered me. It was my grandfather's, old hunting knife, fixed blade, leather handle. He'd given it to me when I was 16. It was the one thing I owned that actually meant something. A week later, I drove back. I know, stupid, incredibly, unbelievably stupid, but I couldn't let it go. I told myself I'd just go to the campsite, look around, and leave. I wouldn't go near the cabin. I wouldn't stay past noon. I'd be in and out. I parked at the same trailhead, around 9 a.m. The lot was empty again. No cars, no people, just gray sky and cold wind. I started hiking. The trail felt different this time. Wrong. The trees seemed closer, the shadows deeper. Every sound made me jump, but I kept going. I reached my campsite around 10:30. It looked the same as I'd left it. The fire ring, the flattened grass where my tent had been, the footprints still visible in the mud. Mine and theirs. I searched for the knife, checked the fire ring, the grass, the edges of the clearing. Nothing. I widened my search, moved into the trees, scanning the ground, hoping to spot it. That's when I found the trail. Not the main trail, a different one. Narrow, barely visible, winding deeper into the woods. And on the ground, scattered along its path, were small pieces of orange tape. Surveyor's tape, the kind you use to mark trees. Someone had marked this trail recently. The tape was fresh, still bright, not faded by weather. I followed it, I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe, or that same stupid need to know, but I followed it. It led through thick forest, down into a ravine, up the other side. Took about 20 minutes, and then it opened into another clearing, the same clearing, with the same cabin. Only this time, the door was wide open, and sitting on the porch, right at the edge of the steps, was my knife, stuck into the wood, standing upright, like someone had placed it there for me to find. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at that knife, at that open door, at the black windows that stared back like empty eyes. And then I heard it, from inside the cabin, a voice, not loud, not words I could understand, just sound, low and rhythmic, like chanting. I backed away, one step, then another, my eyes never leaving that door. The chanting got louder. I turned and ran, didn't look back, didn't stop. I ran down that marked trail, through the ravine, up the other side, back to my campsite, back to the main trail, and I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove home faster than I've ever driven in my life. Didn't care about speed limits, didn't care about anything except putting as much distance as possible between me and that cabin. I haven't been back to those woods since. I don't think I ever will, but sometimes, late at night, I hear it, that chanting, faint, like it's coming from far away, and I wonder if it's still going, if whoever or whatever was in that cabin is still there, still waiting, still chanting. And I wonder what would have happened if I'd walked through that door. I still don't have my knife, my grandfather's knife. It's still there, stuck in that porch, waiting for someone to pull it out. It won't be me. It knew my name. I've been wild, camping my whole life. Started as a kid with my dad, kept doing it on my own after he passed. There's something about being alone in the woods that settles my mind. No phones, no traffic, no people, just me and the trees and the sound of my own breathing. I've done dozens of solo trips, Scotland, Wales, the Lake District. I know how to handle myself. I know what the woods sound like at night. I know the difference between a fox and a badger and a deer moving through the underbrush. I know what normal sounds like. This happened about 10 years ago, April or May, I think. Weather was unseasonably warm, so I planned a 3-night trip in a forest in Wales. Drove out on a Friday afternoon, parked at a small trailhead, and hiked about 4 miles in to a spot I'd used before. Clearing near a stream, flat ground, good cover. Perfect. First day was great. Long hike, beautiful views, stopped at a pub for lunch on the way back to my tent. By evening, I was tired in the best way. I cooked dinner on my camp stove, had a few beers, read my book by headlamp until I couldn't keep my eyes open. I zipped up my tent around 11 p.m. and fell asleep almost instantly. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. Could have been midnight, could have been 2 a.m. But I woke up suddenly and I knew immediately that something was wrong. Not a sound, not a movement, just a feeling. That primal part of your brain that screams at you when you're being watched. I lay there in the dark, completely still, listening. My tent is small, just enough room for me and my gear. The walls were thin nylon, barely any protection from whatever was outside. At first, I heard nothing, just the normal forest silence. No wind, no animals, nothing. Then I heard it. A sound, faint at first, but definitely there. Coming from somewhere outside, maybe 50 feet away. Someone was humming, not tunelessly, not like someone just making noise. It was a melody, perfectly pitched, perfectly in tune, like a professional singer warming up. The kind of sound that should have been beautiful, but was absolutely terrifying in that context. I lay there frozen, listening to this person hum in the dark woods 50 feet from my tent. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Another camper, someone who'd gotten lost, someone who didn't realize anyone else was out here. But the more I listened, the less that explanation made sense. The humming was too perfect, too deliberate, and it wasn't moving, just staying in one spot, repeating the same few bars over and over. I don't know how long I lay there. 5 minutes, 10. The humming never stopped, never changed, never got closer. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I unzipped my tent as slowly and quietly as I could. Just an inch at first, peeking out into the darkness. The moment my head poked through the opening, the humming stopped. Dead silence, like someone had pressed pause. I stayed there, head out of the tent, scanning the darkness. Moonlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows. I could see maybe 30 feet in any direction. Nothing moved, nothing made a sound. I convinced myself it was just someone messing around. A prank. Probably some local kids who knew campers came out here. They had a recording or something. That was the only explanation that made sense. I shouted into the darkness, "You're not funny, fuck off!" My voice echoed through the trees. No response, just silence. I waited another minute, then started to pull my head back into the tent, and as I reached for the zipper, the humming started again. But this time, it wasn't 50 feet away. It was right next to me, maybe 10 feet from the tent, and from the complete opposite direction. I froze. My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. There was no way someone could have moved from the first spot to the second without me seeing or hearing them. The woods were dead quiet. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, nothing. Just that perfect humming, now close enough that I could almost feel it. Something in me snapped. Fear turned to anger, or maybe just stupidity. I scrambled out of the tent, grabbed my flashlight, and shone it toward the sound. At first, I saw nothing. Just trees and shadows. Then I saw it. A figure, standing maybe 15 feet away, silhouetted against the tree line, human-shaped, but wrong, so wrong. It was tall, 7 feet at least, thin, not skinny, but stretched, like someone had pulled it lengthwise until its proportions were all off. Its limbs were too long, its head was too small, rounded, perched on a neck that seemed to go on forever. Its skin was pale gray, almost luminous in the moonlight. It was just standing there, facing me, not moving. I couldn't make out its face. It was shrouded in shadow, like the darkness clung to it. But I knew it was looking at me. I could feel its gaze like a weight pressing down on my chest. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. I just stood there, flashlight trained on this thing, waiting for it to do something. It did. It started humming again, the same melody, but this time, it wasn't just humming. It was singing my name, not in its own voice, in mine. The same tone, the same inflection, the same way I would say it, but wrong. Like it had heard human speech once and was trying to imitate it without understanding how. The syllables were slightly off, stretched in ways that shouldn't be possible. It sang my name over and over, softly, almost gently, while I stood there paralyzed with terror. I don't know how long that lasted. Seconds, minutes, time lost all meaning. I just stood there, staring at this impossible thing, listening to it sing my name in my own voice, and then, finally, my body remembered how to move. I turned and ran. I ran without thinking, without direction, just ran. Branches whipped my face, roots tried to trip me, my bare feet slammed against the forest floor. I didn't feel any of it. All I felt was pure, animal terror, the kind that erases everything except the need to get away. I ran until my legs gave out. Collapsed against a tree, gasping, heart pounding so hard I thought I might die right there. The forest was silent again. No humming, no singing, no movement. I stayed there for what felt like hours, leaning against that tree, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to convince myself that what I'd just seen wasn't real, that I'd imagined it, that it was sleep paralysis or exhaustion or something. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. I looked down at myself. I was wearing just socks and pajama bottoms, no shoes, no jacket, no phone, no flashlight. I dropped everything when I ran. My tent was somewhere behind me. My car keys were in the tent. My phone was in the tent. Everything I needed to get home was back there with that thing. I sat against that tree until the sky started to lighten. The slow gray of pre-dawn filtering through the trees. As soon as I could see more than a few feet, I started moving. Finding my way back wasn't as hard as I'd feared. I hadn't run as far as I thought. 20 minutes of walking, and I started recognizing landmarks. The stream, the fallen log, the clearing. My tent was still there, standing exactly where I'd left it. I approached slowly, every sense on high alert, listened for any sound, watched for any movement. Nothing, just the normal morning woods, birds starting to sing, squirrels rustling in the leaves. I walked up to my tent. The flap was still open, the way I'd left it when I scrambled out. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. My sleeping bag, my pack, my phone, my flashlight. I grabbed my stuff, threw it all in my pack without folding or organizing, and got out of there as fast as I could. Didn't even take down the tent properly, just yanked the stakes out of the ground and shoved the whole wet, dirty mess into my bag. I was back at my car within 2 hours, sat in the driver's seat with the doors locked and the engine running for a solid 10 minutes before I could even put it in gear. I drove home in a daze, didn't stop, didn't eat, just drove. I didn't go camping again for 2 years. I've told this story to friends and family over the years. Always a shorter version, always leaving out the worst parts. The humming, the singing, the way it said my name. My girlfriend is the only one who knows the full story. I told her one night when we were lying in bed and I couldn't sleep. She held me and didn't say much. What is there to say? I still go camping, not as often and never alone. But I haven't forgotten. I don't think I ever will. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and I'm just on the edge of sleep, I hear it. That melody. Faint, like it's coming from far away. And sometimes, I swear I can hear it singing my name. I tell myself it's just my imagination, just memories playing tricks, but I never hum along. The trail markers. I've been hiking and hunting in remote areas for over 30 years. Started when I was a kid with my grandfather, kept doing it after he passed. It's the only time I feel truly at peace. Just me, the trees, and miles of nothing in every direction. I know the woods. I know how to read tracks, how to predict weather by the way the wind shifts, how to tell time by the sun. I know what normal looks like, sounds like, feels like. That's why what happened still bothers me so much. Because I know what I saw, and I know it wasn't normal. This was about 4 years ago, late October, right before deer season opened. I like to go out before the crowds show up, do some scouting, find good spots for when the season starts. I picked a national forest in northern Michigan. Remote area, about 10 miles from the nearest paved road. I'd been there once before, years earlier, and remembered it as being beautiful and completely empty. I drove up on a Wednesday, took my time, stopped for lunch at a diner in a tiny town I can't even remember the name of. The waitress was friendly, asked where I was heading. When I told her, she got this look on her face. Not quite concern, not quite warning, just something. She said, "You be careful out there. Woods are funny this time of year." I laughed it off, said I'd been in the woods my whole life. She just nodded and refilled my coffee. I should have paid more attention to that look. The trailhead was exactly where I remembered it. Dirt parking lot, empty except for one old truck with a camper shell. Looked like it hadn't moved in weeks. I shouldered my pack and started hiking. The first few miles were beautiful. Perfect fall weather, crisp and cool, leaves crunching under my boots. The trail followed an old logging road for a while, then veered off into deeper forest. I'd marked a spot on my map about 6 miles in. A small clearing near a creek, flat ground, good water source. I planned to set up base camp there and spend a few days exploring the surrounding ridges. I made it to the clearing around 3 p.m., perfect spot. Creek about 50 yards away, plenty of dead wood for a fire, and a view of the ridgeline to the west. I dropped my pack and started setting up camp. That's when I noticed the first strange thing. There was a pile of rocks near the edge of the clearing. Not a cairn, not a marker, just a pile. Like someone had collected stones and stacked them randomly, then maybe kicked them over. They were arranged in a rough circle, about 3 feet across. I didn't think much of it at first. People build cairns all the time. Hikers, hunters, kids messing around. It's not unusual, but as I looked closer, I noticed something else. The rocks weren't just piled. They were arranged in a pattern, a spiral starting from the outside and working inward, and in the center of the spiral, there was a small hole. like someone had dug into the ground and then covered it back up. I stared at it for a long moment. There was something about that spiral that made my skin crawl. It wasn't random, it was deliberate, purposeful. I told myself it was nothing. Kids, probably. Local legend stuff. I kicked the rocks apart, scattering them across the clearing, and went back to setting up my tent. By 5 p.m., I had camp set up, firewood gathered, and water filtered from the creek. I made dinner as the sun started to set, watched the sky turn orange and purple and deep blue. Perfect evening, the kind that makes you forget about weird rock piles and strange looks from waitresses. I sat by the fire until about 10 p.m., reading my book, listening to the sounds of the forest. Owls calling, deer moving in the distance, the constant murmur of the creek. Normal sounds, comforting sounds. I banked the fire and crawled into my tent around 10:30, fell asleep within minutes. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night to absolute silence. Not the normal kind of quiet, the kind that's wrong. No owls, no deer, no wind, no creek. Nothing. Just a heavy, pressing stillness that felt like it was pushing against my eardrums. I lay there in the dark, listening, waiting for something to break the silence. Nothing did. After a few minutes, I started to relax. Maybe it was just a lull. Happens sometimes. Animals go quiet when predators are near, and then they start up again. But the silence didn't break. It just continued, minute after minute, until I started to feel like I was suffocating. Then I heard it. A sound. Faint at first, but getting louder. Coming from somewhere in the forest beyond my clearing. Footsteps. But wrong. Not the steady rhythm of a person walking. Not the 4-beat pattern of a deer. Something else. Something that moved in bursts. 3 quick steps. Pause. 3 quick steps. Pause. Like it was testing the ground or maybe circling something. I reached for my flashlight and my rifle. Held them both, listening. The footsteps kept going. Closer now. Definitely circling. Starting on my left, moving behind me, then to my right. Always just beyond the edge of my firelight. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just lay there, heart pounding, waiting for whatever it was to step into the light. It never did. But the circling continued for what felt like hours. That strange, broken rhythm. 3 steps, pause. 3 steps, pause. Around and around my camp. I don't know when it stopped. I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up to gray dawn light filtering through my tent walls. I scrambled out of my sleeping bag, grabbed my rifle, and unzipped the tent. The clearing was empty. Nothing out of place. My fire was dead cold. My gear was exactly where I'd left it. But there were footprints in the soft earth around my tent. Dozens of them, circling the tent in a wide loop, just like I'd heard. They were barefoot, human-shaped, but wrong. The toes were too long, the arches were too high, and they were deep, like whoever made them was heavy. Much heavier than they should have been. I followed the tracks. They led to the edge of the clearing and stopped. Just stopped. Like whoever made them had vanished into thin air. That's when I noticed the rock pile, the one I'd kicked apart the day before. It was back, rebuilt. Same spiral pattern, same hole in the center. And around the hole, there was something new, feathers, dozens of them. Small bird feathers arranged in a circle around the spiral. And in the very center of the hole, a single deer bone. Cleaned of all flesh, like it had been boiled or picked clean by something with very small teeth. I stood there staring at it for a long time. My mind was racing, trying to find an explanation. Someone else in the woods, another camper, a prank, kids messing around. But the footprints, the circling, the way the rock pile had been rebuilt exactly as I'd found it. That wasn't random. That was deliberate. I should have packed up and left right then. Every instinct was screaming at me to get out. But I didn't. Because I'm stubborn. Because I didn't want to be scared off by something I couldn't explain. Because I told myself there had to be a rational explanation, and I was going to find it. That was my second mistake. I spent the day hiking the surrounding ridges, trying to clear my head. Found some good deer sign, marked a few spots on my map. By afternoon, I'd almost convinced myself the night before was just my imagination. Sleep paralysis, maybe, or some weird animal I hadn't identified. I got back to camp around 4 p.m. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. The rock pile was still there. I left it alone this time. That night, I built a bigger fire, sat with my back to a tree, rifle across my lap, and waited. The sun went down. The forest went quiet. The same heavy silence as the night before. And then, just as the last light faded from the sky, I saw something. A light, deep in the woods, maybe 200 yards away, faint at first, then brighter, not a flashlight, not a campfire, something else, an orange glow pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat made visible. I watched it for a long time. It didn't move, just pulsed, steady and slow, deep in the darkness. Then I heard the footsteps again, 3 quick steps, pause, 3 quick steps, pause, coming from the opposite direction of the light. I stood up, rifle ready, scanning the darkness. The footsteps stopped. The light kept pulsing, and then, from somewhere in the woods, a voice. Not words, just sound, low and rhythmic, like chanting. Multiple voices, all in unison, coming from the direction of the light. I backed toward my tent, grabbed my pack, started throwing things inside without any organization. The chanting grew louder, the footsteps started again, closer now, much closer. I didn't wait. I ran blind through the dark forest. Branches tore at my face, roots tried to trip me, my pack slammed against my back with every stride. I didn't care, I just needed to get away from that light, those voices, those footsteps. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. Collapsed against a tree, gasping, heart pounding so hard I thought I might die. The forest was silent again. No chanting, no footsteps, no pulsing light. I stayed there for a long time, just breathing, trying to figure out what to do. I'd left my tent, my food, most of my gear. All I had was my rifle, my flashlight, and the clothes on my back. I didn't dare go back. I waited until dawn. The coldest night of my life, huddled against that tree, too scared to move, too wired to sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow was a threat. When the sky finally started to lighten, I started moving. I didn't know where I was. I'd run in blind panic, no direction, no thought. I was lost. I spent that day trying to find the trail, walked in what I hoped was a straight line, looking for any sign of civilization, found nothing but trees and more trees. By afternoon, I was exhausted, hungry, and starting to get scared. Not of whatever was out there, of dying, of never finding my way out. I found a small stream around 3 p.m. and followed it. Streams lead to rivers. Rivers lead to roads. That's what I told myself. The stream led me deeper into the forest. Around 5 p.m., with the sun starting to fade, I found the first marker, a tree with a symbol carved into it. Fresh cuts, pale wood still visible. A spiral, the same spiral from the rock pile. I stopped, stared at it. My blood went cold. I kept walking. Found another tree 100 yards later. Same spiral, then another. They were everywhere, marking a trail through the woods. A trail that led exactly where I was going. I wanted to turn back. I wanted to run in the opposite direction, but the sun was setting, and I had no food, no shelter, and no idea where I was. The stream was my only chance. I followed the marked trees deeper into the forest. The sun set. Darkness came. I kept walking, using my flashlight to find the next marker, the next spiral. I didn't hear anything. Didn't see anything. Just the trees and the symbols and the sound of my own terrified breathing. Around 8 p.m., I found it. A clearing. Large, maybe 100 yards across. In the center, a fire pit. Not old. Recent. The coals were still warm, and around the fire pit, arranged in a perfect circle, were dozens of rock piles, each one identical, each one with a spiral pattern, each one with feathers and bones arranged around the center. I stood at the edge of the clearing, frozen. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. This wasn't a campsite. This was something else, something ritualistic, something that had been going on for a long time. I backed away slowly, didn't turn my back, just retreated into the trees, eyes fixed on that circle of rocks. That's when I heard the chanting. Same as the night before. Low, rhythmic, multiple voices coming from somewhere beyond the clearing, getting closer. I turned and ran, again, blind through the dark, branches tearing at me, terror driving every step. I don't know how long I ran. Long enough that my legs gave out again, long enough that I collapsed and couldn't get back up. I lay there on the forest floor, gasping, waiting to die. The chanting faded, stopped, silence returned. I stayed there all night, didn't move, didn't sleep. Just lay there, listening, waiting for something to find me. Nothing did. When dawn finally came, I got up and kept moving. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. I found a road around noon. Dirt, overgrown, but definitely a road. I followed it for hours. My feet blistered. My throat burned with thirst. I kept walking. Around 4 p.m., I found a hunter's cabin, abandoned, but there was a phone, an old landline, dusty but connected. I called 911. They sent a sheriff's deputy. He drove me to a hospital. I was dehydrated, hypothermic, covered in cuts and bruises. They kept me overnight. I told the deputy what I'd seen, the rock piles, the symbols, the chanting, the light. He listened, took notes, nodded, said he'd look into it. I never heard from him again. I went back to those woods once, a year later, drove to the same trailhead, hiked to where I thought my camp had been. The clearing was empty, no sign I'd ever been there, no rock piles, no symbols, nothing. I hiked further, trying to find the place with the circle of rock piles, walked for 2 days, found nothing. Whatever was out there, it was gone, or hiding, or waiting for someone else to find it. I don't go into deep woods alone anymore. Can't. Every time I try, I see spirals in the bark patterns, hear chanting in the wind, feel eyes watching from the darkness. I told my wife I just lost my taste for camping. She doesn't ask questions, but sometimes, late at night, I think about that clearing, that circle of rocks, those voices in the dark, and I wonder if they're still out there, still chanting, still building their spirals, still waiting for the next lost hiker to stumble into their clearing. I hope it's never you. The road closed. I'm a sales rep. Drive about 40,000 miles a year, mostly rural routes through the Midwest and Appalachian states. You get to know back roads the way some people know their own neighborhood. Shortcuts, old highways, roads that don't show up on GPS anymore. I thought I knew them all. This happened last November. I was driving from Pittsburgh to Charleston, West Virginia, about a 4-hour trip on the interstate, but I had time to kill and wanted to avoid the tolls. I decided to take a scenic route through the Monongahela National Forest. Beautiful country, winding roads, no traffic. Perfect. I stopped for gas around 4 p.m. in a tiny town I can't remember the name of. Old guy running the station, maybe 70, covered in grease. He asked where I was heading. I told him. He got this look, not quite concern, not quite warning, just something. He said,
Are you taking 19 South?
I said no. I was cutting through the forest roads. Better views. He shook his head.
Roads closed about 20 miles in. Landslide last spring, never reopened.
I asked if there was another way through. He said,
There's an old logging road you can take as a detour, but I wouldn't. Not this time of year.
I asked why. He just shrugged.
People get lost back there. Happens more than you'd think.
I laughed it off. Said I had GPS, plenty of gas, warm clothes. I'd be fine. He didn't laugh. Just took my money and went back to whatever he was doing. I should have listened. I found the road closure about an hour later. Big concrete barriers across the highway, orange signs, the works, exactly what he'd described. I pulled out my phone, checked the map. There it was. The logging road detour looked like it added about 15 miles, looping through deeper forest before reconnecting with 19 on the other side. I turned onto it without a second thought. The road was gravel at first, then dirt, then barely 2 tracks through the trees. My car handled it fine, but I had to go slow, really slow. The kind of slow where you start to wonder if you're still on the right path. About 30 minutes in, I realized I hadn't seen another car since I left the main road. No houses, no signs, no power lines, just trees and more trees. I checked my phone. No service. I told myself it was fine. The road had to lead somewhere. It was on the map. I'd be back on the highway within an hour. I drove for another 30 minutes. The road got narrower, rougher. Branches scraped against my car. The sun was starting to get low, casting long shadows through the trees. That's when I saw the first marker, a tree with a strip of orange plastic tied around it. Surveyor's tape. Fresh, not faded. I thought maybe it was a trail marker. Hikers, hunters, something. Kept driving. A few minutes later, another marker. Then, another. They were everywhere, lining both sides of the road, leading deeper into the forest. I should have turned around. Every instinct was telling me something was wrong, but the road was too narrow to turn, and I kept thinking the highway was just ahead. It wasn't. The road ended around 5:30 p.m. Just stopped. In front of me was a gate, old metal, rusted, with a chain and padlock. Beyond it, the road continued, but I couldn't go any further. I sat there for a minute, staring at that gate, trying to figure out what to do. I checked my phone again. Still no service. I got out of the car, walked to the gate. The chain was old, but solid. No way through. I looked around. The markers were everywhere now. Orange tape on every tree, leading away from the road into the woods, like someone had marked a trail. I followed it, just a few feet, just to see where it went. The trail led to a clearing, maybe 50 yards across, and in that clearing, there was a cabin. Not a ranger station, not a shelter, just a cabin. Old, weathered, with a sagging roof and dark windows. Looked abandoned for years. But the door was open, just a crack, like someone had gone inside and never come out. I stood at the edge of that clearing for a long time. Everything in me was screaming to get back in my car and figure something else out. But it was getting dark, and I had no service, and that cabin was the only sign of human existence I'd seen in hours. I walked toward it. The closer I got, the more wrong it felt. The windows weren't just dark, they were painted black from the inside. The door wasn't just open. It was open just enough to invite you in, but not enough to show you what was waiting. I stopped at the porch, listened. Nothing, just the wind in the trees. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" No answer. I pushed the door open, stepped inside. The cabin was empty. Dusty, old, but empty. No furniture, no signs of recent use, just bare walls and a dirt floor. But on the far wall, there was writing, scratched into the wood, deep and uneven. One word. Run. I stared at it for a long time. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps, outside, circling the cabin. I froze. Didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stood there, in that dark cabin, listening. The footsteps continued, slow, deliberate, circling the cabin like something was checking the perimeter. I looked around for somewhere to hide. Nothing, just bare walls and that one word carved into them. The footsteps stopped at the door. I held my breath. A long moment passed, then another, and then I heard breathing, right on the other side of that door. Heavy, wet, like something was sniffing the air, trying to catch my scent. I backed away slowly, step by step, my eyes never leaving that door. I bumped into the back wall. Nowhere left to go. The breathing continued. Minutes, felt like hours. Then, slowly, the door began to open. Not fast, just a crack at first, then wider, letting in the fading light. I saw a hand, pale, too pale, fingers too long, gripping the edge of the door. Then, a face peered through the gap. I can't describe it, won't describe it. All I can say is that it wasn't human, not anymore. The eyes were wrong, the mouth was wrong, everything was wrong. It looked at me, locked eyes with me, and then it smiled. I don't know what happened next. Pure instinct, I guess. I ran. Straight through that door, past that thing, out into the clearing. I didn't look back. Didn't dare. I ran for my car. Got there, fumbled with the keys, dropped them, picked them up, finally got the door open. I looked back as I started the engine. The thing was standing at the edge of the clearing, watching me, not moving, just watching. I hit the gas, drove straight through the underbrush, branches scraping against my car, not caring about damage, not caring about anything except getting away. I drove for hours, miles, in circles probably, I don't know. Eventually I found a road, paved, with lines. I followed it. I ended up in another small town around midnight. Found a motel, checked in, locked the door, and didn't sleep. The next morning, I called the county sheriff, told them what I'd seen, the markers, the cabin, the thing in the woods. They sent someone out. Found the logging road, found the gate, found the clearing. The cabin was gone, not burned, not collapsed, gone, like it had never been there. Just an empty clearing with nothing but leaves and dirt. The deputy asked if I was sure this was the place. I was sure, but there was nothing there. He wrote it off, said I probably got turned around, disoriented. Happens all the time in those woods. I know what I saw. I still drive for work. Can't afford not to, but I never take shortcuts anymore. Never drive roads that aren't on the map, and every time I see orange tape on a tree, I turn around. I don't know what was in those woods. I don't know if it was human once, or something else entirely, but I know it's still there, still waiting, and I know that if I'd stayed in that cabin 1 minute longer, I wouldn't be telling this story. The road was closed for a reason. I should have listened. They come out at night. I've driven through West Virginia 100 times, maybe more. It's one of those states you cross to get somewhere else, all mountains and trees and roads that wind like they were laid down by drunk surveyors. I never thought much about it. Just drove through, stopped for gas, kept going. That changed last October. I was driving from DC to Cincinnati, about 8 hours total, but I'd done it before, left around 2 p.m., figured I'd make it by dark. Easy drive, except for the detour, construction on 68. They routed me onto a state highway, then onto a county road, then onto something that barely qualified as a road at all. By 5 p.m., I was on a narrow 2-lane through deep forest, the kind where trees press in on both sides and the sky is just a slit overhead. I wasn't worried. GPS said it would reconnect with the main road in about 20 miles, then back on track. I never made it to those 20 miles. Around 5:30, my engine started making a noise, a knocking sound, deep and rhythmic. Then the temperature gauge spiked. Then smoke started pouring from under the hood. I pulled over as fast as I could, got out, popped the hood, and was hit by a wave of heat and the smell of burning oil. Something had blown. Bad. I stood there on that empty road, staring at my dead car, and tried to figure out what to do. No cell service. Of course. Deep forest, mountains, no towers for miles. I had options. Wait for someone to drive by, start walking, or stay with the car and hope help came. I waited for an hour. Not a single car passed. The sun was getting low. The temperature was dropping. I had a jacket, some snacks, a bottle of water, and a dying flashlight in my glove box. I decided to walk. There had to be a house, a gas station, something. The road had to lead somewhere. I grabbed my backpack, put what I could in it, and started walking. The road was empty. Just trees and more trees. No houses, no signs, no power lines, nothing. I walked for an hour. The sun set. Darkness came fast in those woods, like someone had flipped a switch. I kept walking. My flashlight was weak, barely illuminating 10 feet ahead. The road was just a dark tunnel through the trees. Around 7 p.m., I saw a light, not on the road, off in the woods, maybe 100 yards away. A faint orange glow, like a fire. I stopped, stared at it. My first thought was another camper, someone who could help, or at least let me use their phone. I left the road and walked toward it. The woods were thick. Branches grabbed at my clothes. Roots tried to trip me. The light got closer, but it never seemed to get brighter. Just stayed that same faint orange, flickering like a flame. I pushed through a final wall of brush and found myself in a clearing. There was a fire pit, stones arranged in a circle, flames dancing. But no one was there, just the fire, burning alone in the dark. I looked around. No tent, no gear, no sign of anyone, just the fire. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I stepped closer to the fire, warming my hands. It was real, definitely real. But who built it? Where were they? That's when I noticed the trees. Around the edge of the clearing, every tree had marks on them. Not carvings, not initials, just scratches. Deep ones, running vertically down the trunks like something had climbed them over and over again. The bark was stripped away in long strips, revealing pale wood underneath. I counted, at least 20 trees, all marked the same way. I felt that cold feeling crawl up my spine, the one that tells you to leave. Now, I backed away from the fire, toward the edge of the clearing, and that's when I heard it, a sound from the woods. Not an animal, something else. A low, guttural growl, but not like any animal I'd ever heard. It was almost vocal, like it was trying to form words, but couldn't. I froze, listened. Another sound answered it from the opposite direction, then another, and another. They were all around me, circling the clearing, hidden in the darkness. I didn't wait. I ran, back through the brush, toward the road. Branches tore at my face. I fell twice, got back up, kept running. Behind me, the sounds got louder, closer. Whatever they were following. I burst onto the road and kept running. Didn't look back, just ran. I don't know how long I ran. Long enough that my lungs burned and my legs screamed. Long enough that I started to think I'd never stop. Eventually, I couldn't run anymore, collapsed on the side of the road, gasping, waiting to die. The sounds had stopped. I lay there for a long time, heart pounding, trying to breathe. The road was dark and silent. No growls, no movement, nothing. I got up slowly, started walking again. I had no choice. I had to find help. About an hour later, I saw another light. This time, it was on the road. Headlights, a car coming toward me. I waved my arms, shouted, nearly cried with relief. The car slowed, stopped, an old pickup truck, rusty, with a camper shell on the back. The window rolled down. An old man peered out at me, looked about 70, with a weathered face and tired eyes. He said,
"You lost, son?"
I told him everything. The car, the fire, the sounds, the running. He listened without saying a word. When I finished, he just nodded, said,
"Get in."
I climbed into the passenger seat. He drove without speaking for a long time. I was too exhausted to ask questions. Finally, he said,
"You're lucky you ran."
I asked what he meant. He said,
People go missing in these woods all the time. Campers, hikers, folks whose cars break down. They find their cars sometimes, never find them.
I asked what was out there. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said,
Something that's been here longer than us. Something that doesn't like visitors.
I didn't ask any more questions. He drove me to a town about 30 miles away, dropped me at a motel, told me there was a tow truck in the morning who could help with my car. I thanked him. He just nodded and drove away. I never got his name. The next morning, I called a tow truck. The driver was a young guy, early 20s, who seemed bored more than anything. He drove me back to where my car was. It was still there, right where I'd left it. But something was wrong. The doors were open, all of them. My stuff was scattered across the road, my clothes, my maps, my cooler, everything pulled out and thrown around like someone had been searching for something. The tow truck driver looked at me.
You leave it like this?
I said no. I'd locked it. I was sure I'd locked it. He shrugged, helped me gather my stuff, loaded the car onto his truck. I asked if he'd ever seen anything like this before. He said,
Animals, maybe. Raccoons can open doors if they're determined.
I didn't believe him. Those weren't animal tracks around my car. They were barefoot, human, too many toes. I didn't say anything, just got in his truck and let him tow me back to town. I spent the next 2 days at a repair shop, waiting for my car to be fixed. I didn't sleep well. Every sound outside my motel room made me jump. Every shadow was a threat. On the 3rd day, my car was ready. I paid, got in, and drove out of that town as fast as I could. I haven't been back to West Virginia since. I take the long way now. Add hours to my trip. Don't care. But here's the thing that still bothers me. Before I left that town, I did some research, looked up missing persons in that county, found dozens, campers, hikers, people whose cars broke down on remote roads. All disappeared, never found, and in every single case, they were last seen in the same general area, the same forest, the same stretch of road. I pulled up a map, found the coordinates of where my car broke down, compared it to the search areas. It was right in the middle. I don't know what was in those woods. I don't know what made those sounds, or built that fire, or marked those trees. But I know it's still there, still waiting. And I know that if I'd stayed in that clearing 1 minute longer, if I'd run just a little slower, I'd be just another name on that list. I still drive for work. Can't afford not to, but I carry a satellite phone now, a real flashlight, a gun, and I never, ever drive roads that don't have cell service after dark, because whatever's out there, it comes out at night, and it's always hungry. What really gets me about these stories is that none of these people were doing anything wrong. They were just hiking, just driving, just living their lives. And then something found them, something that had been waiting. 5 stories, 5 survivors. One question for you: which one would have made you run? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to be ready when the next story drops, hit that follow button, because you never know what's watching from the trees. Stay safe out there,